Okay, Doug, you there? Doug? I see his name. There you go. Okay. I don't know what happened. Okay. Welcome to the book of Samuel. Shmuel. God hears. Shmuel is the first prophet in Israel. He's the last of the judges and the first of the prophets. And Israel is going through a transition. Some have said that the book of Judges and Ruth are during a period of anarchy. I would tend to agree to a point. Israel always had a king. He gave the nation its constitution. It's called the Torah. And the Torah, it basically consists of Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which give the laws that conduct a society made up of a family, which we know to be the children of Jacob, or,
Yes.
or the people of Israel.
Okay.
They know to be quiet,
Okay.
okay?
And
Okay.
and under Joshua, under Moses and Joshua, the people were governed. Then we had the time of the judges. And that period, as I recall, was about 400 years. And that time, there was anarchy, but a judge always came to bring the people, to save the people out of destruction that had fallen upon them due to their disobedience. And the anarchy was strictly because of their disobedience, because they had been given a law by the king, who happens to be the God of Israel. And so we're now introduced into the book of Samuel. And the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Bible, divided up Samuel into two books, which we call First Samuel and Second Samuel. The book of First Samuel basically introduces Israel to its first and second king. The first king being a man by the name of Saul, and the second king being a man by the name of David. And First Samuel ends with the death of Saul, who has been trying to kill David because of jealousy. Second Samuel picks up where First Samuel left off, with David now, the second king of Israel, taking charge. And so the book of First Samuel can be divided into four parts, and I've got them here. Chapters 1 through 7 describes Samuel as a prophet and a judge. He's the last of the judges and the first of the prophets.
Wow.
And he is used to maintain order within the kingdom It's not a kingdom yet. But to introduce the age of the kings. 1 Samuel 8 through 15 deal with Israel's demand for a king. And we will get into that. It's fascinating. It's one of my soapboxes. As I said, Israel always had a king, but rejected that notion. They decided to have a human king. And I'm going to say this again. If you might recall from having read this book before, Saul, or Shaul, the first king, is anointed after he's looking for donkeys. His father's donkeys have gone astray, and he's running around the countryside looking for them, and he happens to run upon Samuel, the prophet / judge. And things snowball from there. But he couldn't find the donkeys. And I think of Matthew. I forget exactly where it is, where Yeshua says to his disciples, go to such and such a place, and you'll find a donkey there. Bring him to me so that I can ride into Jerusalem. I find the interesting irony in this whole thing. Israel rejected the king for a king who did not know where the donkeys were. And he rejected the king who knew where all the donkeys were. It's such a picture of irony. I can't get over it. So we see Saul being raised up as a king between chapters 8 through 15. And then from 16 to 20, we see that God raises up David to replace Saul's place, although Saul remains as king. And because of Saul being king, he is jealous of David and seeks to kill him. And so from chapters 21 through 31, we see David fleeing Saul. And we see in those chapters the basis for many of the Psalms that were written by David in the book of Psalms. So let's begin with chapter 1. We are just beginning to be introduced to Samuel. Now there was a certain man of Ramatayim Sophim of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Yeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. Now what does all that mean? In 1 Chronicles 6:33 through 35, we read, these are the ones who served with their sons. From the sons of the Kohathites were Heman the singer, the son Yoel, the son of Shmuel, the son of Elkanah, the son of Yeroham, the son of Eliel, the son of Toha, son of Zuph, son of Elkanah, son of Mahat, son of Amasai. What is all that? We see that Elkanah who was the father of Shmuel, is a Kohathite. That means he's a Levite. He's a priest. He's not the priest, but he's a Levite. And so we're going to see later on that Samuel is going to offer up sacrifices. And there's one thing that you can't do in Israel. You can't be a prophet, a priest, and a king. And you can't be a prophet and a priest unless you're a Kohen, a Levite. And so we see that Samuel rightfully is both a prophet and a priest. He's going to offer up sacrifices, and he's allowed to offer up sacrifices. Verse 2. And this man Elkanah had 2 wives. The name was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. This man went up to his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Shiloh was the original location of the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, after crossing the Jordan. Also, the 2 sons of Eli, who was the priest, Hophni and Pinchas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And when the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. I've got a feeling that Peninnah was probably quite prolific. She had a lot of sons and a lot of daughters. Verse 5, but to Hannah he would give a double portion, for he loved Hannah. So almost sounds like a situation of Jacob with Leah, who had 4 sons, and Rachel didn't have any. And yet he loved Rachel. It's interesting. Although the Lord had chosen to close her womb. And her rival provoked her severely to make her miserable, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it was year by year, when she went up to the house of the Lord, that she provoked her. Therefore she wept and did not eat. Could you imagine being? Well, I don't know. I'm a man. At least last time I looked in the mirror.
You're hilarious.
What would it be like to be a woman who has to compete for the affections of her husband? Believe it or not, Leviticus chapter 18 absolutely forbids that practice between 2 sisters. And yet, interestingly enough, the children of Israel were comprised of the sons of 2 sisters by the same man. And you brought up earlier, Dean, that Israel had you couldn't understand or fathom how Israel had broken the law. Look at our origin. And God's plan is to take this people and turn them into an exemplary people for the whole world to be amazed. Verse 6. Verse 8. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? And why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? I don't know. Initially, when I read that many years ago, I found that amusing. Isn't it interesting that there's no answer? It doesn't tell Hannah's reply. Yeah, dear, you're better than 10 sons. Or Elkanah, I don't like you. You went and got this other woman. We don't know. Scripture's silent. It reminds me of another question that was asked. The Pilate said to Yeshua, "What is truth?" And Yeshua was silent. He showed him truth and went to the cross. But another way to look at it is, Hannah, I've given you all this affection. I love you deeply. And yet Hannah was not satisfied, possibly because it was such a dishonor not to have children, not to bless your husband with children. And they had pressure on women even back then. Verse 9. So Hannah arose after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli, the priest, was sitting on the seat of the doorpost of the tabernacle of the Lord. That would be the mezuzot hakayil Adonai, the Hekol Adonai, the doorpost. And she was in bitterness of soul and prayed to the Lord and wept in anguish. Uvaka. You've heard of the Becca Valley? The Valley of Weeping. That's the term here that we see here. She's weeping terribly. Then she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a male child, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. We recall another time when a Nazirite vow was made. In that case, the Nazirite vow was more or less imposed upon Samson. The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah and his wife and said, you're going to have a son, and he's going to be a Nazirite. No razor on his head, no grape juice or wine. And that was imposed upon him by God. In this case, the mother has voluntarily chosen to impose that upon her son. And understandably, I suppose, because he wouldn't have been born otherwise. Any questions? Any comments?
Mm-mm.
You bear with me 1 second. Okay, so I ask, how sacrificial was this vow on the part of Hannah?
She made a vow. She has to keep it.
She has to keep it.
You have to keep it regardless.
But you know what? Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, we're seeing that, and now this vow You were talking about he couldn't eat drink wine or that. Was that all of his life or just part of it?
In this case, uh, it was for all of his life. He
Uh-huh.
was a Nazarite. And that made him particularly special. He was not only a Levite, and the Kohen, a priest, and the Navi, a prophet, but he was a Nazri, a Nazarite.
Right. So he was in that lineage.
Right.
He was kind of in a spot by himself.
Yep, he was. That made him very unique. And we're going to see that all Israel knew that he was unique. Verse 12. And it happened as she continued praying before the Lord, that Eli watched her mouth. Elkanah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, how long will you be drunk? Put your wine away from you. What does that tell you about Eli?
He's presumptuous,
Good
judgmental.
point. Yeah, he was judgmental. He was presumptuous. And what was the priest supposed to do? He was supposed to represent man to God. But here he was being critical of man.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see. Yeah, go ahead, Doug.
He made an assumption before he found out the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you think he was, I don't want to say that word, self-serving, thinking he was all that in a bag of chips? But
Yep.
knowing that he was supposed to be this high priest and allowed his sons to commit this terrible thing. To me,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
like, he's judgmental and two-sided, whatever you want to say. Because when it comes to your own family, you're almost like you want to forgive them, knowing really they're no better. Okay, I guess. But he was judging.
Yes. Right. So we see that Eli was not really functioning as a Kohen, as a priest. He was going through the motions.
Mm.
Verse 15, Elkanah answered and said, no, my lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord. Do not consider your maidservant a wicked woman, for out of the abundance of my complaint and grief I have spoken until now.
Okay, who's this person? Is that Baal?
Whom?
This Bethel, what is that? Is that Baal, a pagan god?
What are you talking about, Baal?
Yeah, that B-E, I can't hardly see. Who is this? The daughter of B-E-L-A-A-L?
Oh,
What is that? What is it?
Balael would be as I understand it, an evil woman or an evil person.
What?
Yeah.
Huh. Good grief.
But I don't see that. You're using your own translation, right, Dean?
I'm using the King James Bible that my mother had.
Oh, okay. Then Eli answered, go in peace, and the God of Israel grant your petition, which you have asked of him. I don't think that Eli is all that bad. He was presumptuous, but I think in the end, after hearing her, he was empathetic.
Yeah.
And his words were an encouragement to her. In that sense, I would ask, may our words be an encouragement to others. I have a hard time thinking of anybody who's better at it than my wife. We spent 2 days, well, she spent 2.5 days in the hospital. And the two of us had a ball in the ER room. We were praying for people and witnessing to people. It was wonderful.
Wow. Well, that's so cool.
So let's move on. Verse 17, verse 18. And she said, let your maidservant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer sad. She was encouraged by the words of Eli. Verse 18. Then they rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord, and returned and came to their house in Ramah. This will give you an idea. This map is Israel, and we see the Dead Sea here. We see the Sea of Galilee up north. And here's Ramah. And they are in let's see, they are in is it Gibeah? Shiloh. Here's Shiloh. So this is where the tabernacle is. This is where Eli is, and they go up. And the word "up" in the Bible means towards Jerusalem. Right here. So whether you're coming from the south or coming from the north, you're going up. Of course, Jerusalem was not the capital of the nation yet, but this is where they were living, in Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Shmuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. Shmuel meaning God heard, or God paid attention. Verse 21. Now the man Elkanah and his house went up to offer to the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. To the Lord, the sacrifice Hayamim, the daily sacrifice, Ve'et Nidro, his vow, and the sacrifice. Zavach is a sacrifice on the altar, the Mizbeach. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, not until the child is weaned, then I will take him, that he may appear before the Lord and remain there forever. I don't think that she was stalling. I think she just wanted to make sure that he would live. Verse 23, so Elkanah and her husband said to her, do what seems best to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only let the Lord establish his word. Then the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Now when she had weaned him, she took him up with her. Now the Hebrew reads B'parim Shlosha, 3 bulls, but there's a discrepancy between that and some of the translations, such as the some translations translated as a 3-year bull. No, it's parim shlosha, 3 bulls. First of all, the bull could not be 3 years old. It had to be 1 year old, according to the law of Moses. And here are the other issues, part of the sacrifice. In Numbers 15:8, it says, when you prepare a young bull as a burnt offering, or as a sacrifice to fulfill a vow, or as a peace offering to the Lord. So now we see we have 3 bulls. One bull that she came down with was for an olah, a burnt offering. Basically, it's saying Shmuel is given entirely to the Lord. I am given entirely to the Lord, even as this bull is burnt up entirely. Then there's a sacrifice to fulfill a vow. That was the neder, the vow that Hannah had made. And so she offers a sacrifice for that vow. And then there's the shlema, the peace offering. And this is an offering in which was eaten. It was eaten by the family, the people who offered the bull, and the priests. It was part of a meal. And so we see that included in the peace offering was an ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and they brought those things to the house of Shiloh, to the Lord in Shiloh. It's interesting that it says here, and the child was young. Yeah, he had just been weaned. Verse 25. Then they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, "Oh, my Lord, as your soul lives, my Lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition, which I asked of him. Therefore also, I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord." So they worshiped the Lord there. What do you think was going on when they worshiped the Lord? Have you ever had an answer to prayer?
Yes.
Yeah.
You've seen God acting in an unusual way. What did it cause you to do?
Give thanks, honor.
Yeah.
Praise him.
And okay, here's Eli. He says, "Go in peace. The Lord will answer your prayer." She comes back with the child, and he goes, "Wow." He was worshiping the Lord too. I believe that.
Yeah, that was, well, he saw that the Lord granted her wish.
Right.
And here she is. What's amazing is he's about 3.5 years old, and he's going to be given to the priest to stay in Jerusalem or stay in the temple.
In Shiloh.
Wife. And that's quite a deal. I don't know, taking a child, it's just leaving him. That's pretty tough. That's pretty
Well, the
tough.
thing about it, that Eli was probably just astounded that she kept her vow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we see here, a child being born to a barren woman, and the barren woman offering up her child.
Yeah. Now,
But
did she have more children?
yes, she did. We're going to read about that.
Uh-huh.
But she didn't know that.
Huh?
She didn't know all that.
Yeah, right, right. But we'll see. She'll have more children. But you know what? Uh, you remember what happened to Moses uh, when Pharaoh's daughter found him?
Hmm.
Yeah, his Moses' sister said, "You want me to go find a nurse?" And she went and got his mother.
Right. And this is what we're going to see here. She's going to see, we'll get to that, but she will be making tunics for her little son.
Mhm.
And this is the next chapter basically is a prayer. It's a prayer of worship. Um, uh, and a reflection of Hannah's response to what God had done for her. And we can see bit of a similarity. I'm not going to cover that here per se, but we can see somewhat of a similarity between that and the prayer of Mary or Miriam after discovering that she's going to be the mother of Yeshua. But Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord." You know what that means? My
Strength,
horn,
strength,
my, my strength, right.
I'm guessing.
The horn was a sign of strength. I smile at my enemies. Oh, may that happen with us. God is so big. We are victors. All we have to do is ask God for faith, and He gives it. And He'll show us that there's nothing He can't do. She smiles at her enemies. I wonder who she has in mind. Is it Penina?
Well, it could have been. What would she think about Hannah now that she's had a child, and see what kind of a person that he's going to turn into?
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Because I rejoice in your salvation. I smile at my enemies because I rejoice in your salvation. I think we've gone over this before. But I want to get your guys' opinion. I already have an opinion. How would you define salvation? I think we've gone over this actually very recently. What is salvation?
Well, it's that God has poured out His love for you, right?
Mhm.
Well, there's a lot of love in it.
Uh-huh.
I think of it, and I should have, before I ask this question, recalled, I think it was either in Isaiah or Jeremiah, probably Jeremiah, where he describes the walls of Jerusalem as having the name salvation. And that spoke to me. Salvation to me is the state of being safe.
Wow.
What can harm you? You are protected from absolutely anything that can harm you.
Wow.
How about that?
It's
That
so
is,
hard to conceive. It's like, that's wild. Because I hear it, and the enemy can't take us because God got us. We belong to Him. and he won't let anybody hurt his children. But everybody else is up for grabs. That's scary.
Right. And by the same token, we may die in battle. We may die of some. I mean, obviously, there have only been two people that I know of who haven't died. One was by the name of Elijah, and the other one was, what was his name?
Enoch.
Enoch. Yeah. You're ready to teach me, Dean.
No, 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 no. They had to have
So,
some serious favor.
so, so everybody else has died, but you know what? There's life after death. And there's judgment for those who don't know Yeshua.
Can you believe
And
this?
there's salvation, the state of being safe for the souls of those who do know Yeshua.
Yeah, no. Jesus told us that if we believe in the one God, the
Mhm,
God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we believe in Christ, that he
mhm.
did what he said he was who he said he was, and he went to the cross for us, took our sins, then we can expect to be with him when we die.
Yeah.
That's
Amen.
Is
right.
that correct?
Yes, that's true. I hold to something else, though. I also hold that James said, you say that you have faith with no works.
Mhm,
I will show you my faith by my works. Our
Right.
task is to be obedient to him, not
mhm.
because we're going to be saved,
But
but because we
we love
do it out of an act of love. We love the one who has saved us.
yes.
Verse 2. No one is holy like the Lord, for there is none besides you, nor is there any rock like our God. Verse 3. Talk no more so very proudly. Let no arrogance come from your mouth. For the Lord is the God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. It dawned on me, and this is, I guess sometimes we learn the same lessons over and over again. But how do we glorify God?
But by doing what he wants us to do.
Right? By doing what he wants us to do and denying ourselves of having any of the credit for it.
Right.
Yep.
That's tough.
Yep.
But you know what? When we take credit for ourselves, we diminish the glory of God. We're glorifying ourselves.
Right.
Yep.
And God has called us to glorify him.
Mhm.
You and I have an audience of one. God. And we ought not to care what other people think. Verse 4. The bows of the mighty men are broken, and those who stumbled are girded with strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, and the hungry have ceased to hunger. Even the barren has borne 7, and she who has many children has become feeble. We see that God is able to reverse our situations. The Lord kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. The Lord makes the poor and makes the rich. He brings low and lifts up. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the beggar from the ash heap, to set them among princes, and make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world on them. What do you think is meant by that?
I just think he's holding it all together.
Oh,
He's
that's
got
for you.
everything. Huh.
How do you think people thought of astronomy back then?
Oh my gosh, they're goofy. Just downright, and they still do it. They're just goofy, okay?
How
Oh,
does how do we have a planet upon which we walk? Golly, I might see a mountain in the distance, but for all intents and purposes, I think that the Earth is flat.
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, it looks flat.
The
They can be
pillars of
wrong.
the
Just when we go west or east, it come back around to the same spot.
yep, but they didn't
I
know it back then.
no,
And yet,
but
go ahead, Dean.
still, and I have to really think hard on. There's no way, absolutely no way, we can even begin to comprehend the magnificency and the power he has. Now we're just talking about planet Earth and stars. Right? Look outside there. We're totally clueless.
We take, Alan today said, take a deep breath. How often do we think about breathing?
Yeah.
Our lives are as a wisp.
Yep.
And it's amazing that we live.
Mm-hmm.
I've often told people, listen, you're nothing but, with inflation, you're about $5 worth of chemicals.
Yeah, that's it. But you know, the Lord has given us air to breathe. And if you cut off the air for 1 minute totally, you're gone.
Yeah, you're gone.
You're gone. And
So the
I
pill-
see that as just, he's such an amazing God that he gave us all of this stuff, the air, the rain, the sun, all of it works together.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. What do you mean the world is twirling around in space? She didn't know that. But for the world to even so much as exist, she was amazed by it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's worshiping. Verse 9, he will guard the feet of his chasdon, his saints. I don't like the word saints because it commits something that's not Jewish to me. Chasadim is the Hebrew word, righteous ones. But the wicked shall be silent in darkness.
Yay!
That's what you were alluding to, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? We need, certainly pray for me that I might have compassion on the lost
Yeah.
to the point where I have compassion even on my enemies.
Yeah. He told us to love our enemies.
Because their destiny is not good.
Nope. You don't want them to go to hell. Hello? Can you imagine? No.
Right.
No.
Even though
I was
they
just
get on your nerves.
I was just going over arguments for the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll do that. I'll pull that up. Bear with me 1 second. Daniel. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting shame and contempt.
Mm.
And those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn away to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. The wise will live wisely and seek Yeshua. The rest will experience everlasting contempt.
That'd be awful.
That's not in the New Testament. That's in the Old Testament, Daniel.
It's horrible. It's
And I
horrible.
really don't wish that on anyone.
Nope.
And you know, Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, and he said, "You know the Bible, and yet you can't know it." In other words, they're stupid.
Mm.
They
know the Bible, but they can't comprehend it.
Because God has blinded their eyes and their hearts.
Well, I think there's a bit of pride there. Even as we
Yeah.
were talking,
Mm-hmm.
when you have pride, you're denying God His glory.
What?
And the Pharisees were doing that, and a lot of people in the pastorate do that, and the rabbis do that. Let's continue. For by strength no man shall prevail. What does that mean? We're going to learn that in chapter 6 or chapter 7. Israel is going to lose a battle against the Philistines. The Philistines are going to take the Ark of the Covenant. And because they have the Ark of the Covenant, plagues are going to hit the Philistines. And God is going to accomplish through the Ark of the Covenant what Israel with its massive army couldn't accomplish. So I ask, why do we count our resources? We're going to learn later on that David counted his resources. He took a census.
Got
Oh, let me
trouble.
see how many people are in my army.
Trouble.
And God said, okay, I'll take a bunch of them away from you. Nothing that we have is our own. It was all given to us by God. I'm in the middle of, I'd appreciate your prayer because God has given me a whole lot more than I deserve. And along with that comes responsibility. Let's move on. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. This kind of goes along with what Daniel said. From heaven he will thunder against them. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. I think he's about ready to do that again in a final fashion. If they're going to have drag queen sessions of the Last Supper at an Olympics event.
Shameful.
God help this planet.
Mm-hmm.
he will give strength to his king. Now, wait a second here. Israel doesn't have a king. I said that they did. It was God. He'd given them his constitution. This is how you're to run the country. They were failing at it. But Hannah knows that Israel is going to have a king. And who is this king?
It's going to be
And
Saul.
exalt the horn, and there's that word again, carne, which means horn, of his anointed. Mashichu, his anointed. That's where we get Mashiach or
Jesus.
Messiah.
Mhm.
Now, Israel has a whole bunch of anointed ones. We're going to see that Saul is anointed. But ultimately, he is going to exalt the ultimate horn, which is the horn of the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus.
She's prophesizing.
That's right. And this
Wow.
is all part of the act of worship. Then Elkanah went to his house in Ramah, but the child ministered to the Lord before Eli the priest.
Now he's got, this means that Eli is raising the child.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we'll do is
He would have help too. I mean,
what's that?
Eli would have some help too, because there's people working in the temple or working
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah, I don't know how good they are.
Yeah.
But I think what we'll do is we'll stop here and we'll pick up again next week as we become introduced to Shmuel, who is going to be the bridge between the time of anarchy and the time of the kings. Doug, you want to pray?
Okay. Dear God, thank you for letting us be together and studying your word. Thank you for all the things you do for us. Thank you for all of your blessings. We just pray for our country. We pray that you will be with our leaders. Help them to look to you and for guidance, and just be with them and be with this whole world. We just pray you'll be with all of us and bless us. Be with us through this coming week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to turn this off. How do I turn this off? There we go. Let's try that again. This is crazy.